My sister giggled as she stole my office chair. A few minutes later, her shaking voice filled my voicemail. I spoke softly so. How was Section 7? Can you believe your own father would choose a lie over his own daughter? Because mine did, and it blew my entire world apart. The air in that conference room went absolutely still, like a punch to the gut. My father, the CEO, looked straight at me, his voice flat, declaring, suspended. I actually had to repeat it back, just to make sure my ears weren't playing tricks on me. Until you apologize to your sister for undermining her authority, he went on, that familiar, unwavering tone telling me the decision was final. 10 days without pay should give you time to reflect on professional conduct. Next to him, my sister Lauren, in her ridiculously expensive blazer, tried to look wounded. Honestly, if you didn't know her like I did, 28 years of a masterclass in manipulation, you might have even fallen for it. But I saw the flicker, the undeniable, venomous triumph in her eyes. This whole circus started 5 days earlier. Lauren, our head of customer relations, had promised a huge client a custom software solution in, get this, for weeks. For weeks. When anyone in my development department, the department I'd led for 6 years, knew it would take at least 12. She hadn't even bothered to ask. So I did my job. I emailed the client with the actual timeline, copied Dad and Lauren, just to be professional. It wasn't sabotage, it was damage control. It was preventing a lawsuit. But Lauren, of course, stormed into my office, calling it exactly that. And here we were, Dad, as always, taking her side. But then, something shifted inside me. A calm. I just said, all right. The whole room went silent again, but this time with a different kind of shock. My dad, I could tell, was gearing up for a fight. He probably spent the entire morning practicing his lecture on family loyalty and chain of command. Lauren, though, couldn't hide her disbelief. That's it, she practically spat. You're not going to fight this. I just looked at her. You want me suspended? Fine. I'm suspended. You want an apology? You'll get one. My hands, surprisingly, were steady as I gathered my presentation notes. Anything else? Or can I go clear out my desk for the next 10 days? Dad's face, he frowned. My cooperation threw him completely off. He was ready for a battle, not a surrender. Expect you back on the 18th, he grumbled, ready to move forward professionally. I just nodded, walked out, didn't even glance at Lauren's smug little smile, or the board members who were clearly squirming, embarrassed by the family drama unfolding in a business meeting. That office, for 6 years, it had been my sanctuary, my space. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over downtown Portland. My Harvard degrees, awards my team had won, they were all on display. One shelf was crammed with photos of my incredible staff celebrating product launches. Another held prototypes of every single project I'd guided from concept to completion. I hadn't just worked here, I had built something. Under my leadership, our development department tripled in size. Revenue for our division surged by 300%. I'd brought in amazing talent, created systems others copied, fostered a culture where people wanted to come to work. Dad started Sterling Tech Solutions 35 years ago, from nothing, really. 2 people to 250 employees, clients all across North America. He poured his life into it, 16-hour days, sacrificing everything. But then he started handing the reins to Lauren, my sister, who had average ideas at best, but exceptional manipulation skills. Our family dynamics, always a mess. Lauren, 2 years older, always competing for Dad's attention. My entire life, every accomplishment I had, it was either ignored or minimized. Honor roll? Expected. Getting into Harvard? Oh, that was completely overshadowed by Lauren's engagement announcement the very next week. My mom, bless her heart, she used to try and balance it out, make sure I knew my achievements mattered. But then she died a sudden stroke 6 years ago, just 3 months after I joined the company. And without her calming presence, Dad's favoritism for Lauren just it exploded. Back in my office, I started packing, just methodically moving my personal things into boxes. My degrees came off the wall first, wrapped them carefully in bubble wrap. Then the awards, each one a memory of late nights, problem-solving, breakthroughs. While I was doing this, my phone buzzed. It was Daniel, my second in command. What just happened? Lauren's telling everyone you're suspended. I shot back a quick message. Taking some private time. You're in charge. Trust your intuition. More texts flooded in from the team, but I silenced my phone. I just kept packing. With every item I wrapped, it felt like a weight was lifting, a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying. The constant fight to justify my decisions, the exhaustion of proving my expertise to people who were determined to question it, the crushing disappointment of watching my father choose Lauren's ego over the company's well-being. All of it had just piled up, a silent burden I'd accepted. Emily from my team sent 3 frantic messages asking if I was okay. Ryan, one of our best developers, wanted to know if this was really happening. Even people from other departments were reaching out, confused by Lauren's triumphant announcement that I'd been dealt with. The company grapevine had always been fast, but seeing it in real time, it hit me. Everyone knew. They'd all seen Lauren's incompetence, her taking credit, her making impossible promises that my team had to bust their butts to keep. And they'd all sensed Dad's favoritism, even if nobody dared to say it out loud. Then my phone rang again. This time it was Aunt Carol, my mom's sister. She was the one family member, besides Mom, who actually saw the dysfunction. She tried to stay close to both Lauren and me after Mom died, but it was getting harder. I answered. "Hey, Aunt Carol." She didn't even say hello. "Your father just called me," she launched into it. "Asked me to talk some sense into you. He thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. I told him that suspending you for doing your job was probably the stupidest decision he's made in 35 years of business." I couldn't help but smile. How'd he take that? About as well as you'd expect. He hung up on me. She sighed. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" And I realized, honestly, I think I'm better than I've been in years. Is that weird? Not even a little bit, she said. I watched you your whole childhood, trying to earn his approval. I watched him dismiss every single one of your achievements and excuse every one of Lauren's failures. Your mother, and I talked about it constantly. How worried she was about both of you. You for never being enough, and Lauren for never having to be. That validation, it hit me harder than I expected. My mom never told me any of this. She didn't want you to feel forced to choose, Carol explained. She hoped he'd figure it out on his own. Her voice softened. She'd be so proud of you for walking away. She always said you were stronger than you knew. We talked for another 20 minutes. Carol filled in all these details, conversations she'd had with Mom that I knew nothing about. My mother, it turned out, had been documenting Dad's favoritism for years, keeping a journal, detailing how he treated Lauren and me differently. She'd planned to confront him, but then the stroke. Do you still have Mom's journals? I asked. I do, she said. She asked me to keep them safe. Said someday you might need to know you weren't imagining things. There was a pause. Do you want them? Yeah, Aunt Carol, I whispered. I think I do. After we hung up, I just sat there in my emptying office. All those years, Mom had quietly seen it. My pain, the harm being done. She compensated by being my champion, applauding my achievements when Dad refused, listening to my complaints when I had nowhere else to turn. Losing her, it removed the only buffer between me and the full force of Dad's favoritism. Those 6 years without her had been incredibly hard. Each incident more agonizing because there was no one left to validate my reality. The framed photo of my team from last year's holiday party went into a box. The world's okayest boss mug, a prank gift wrapped in tissue. And then, tucked under some documents, I found it. A card the team gave me 2 years ago after we hit an impossible deadline. Inside, personal messages, thanking me for protecting them from unreasonable expectations, for fighting for the resources they needed. Ryan wrote, "You never throw us under the bus." Daniel added, "Even when it would be easier." "Best boss I've ever had. You actually listen." Reading those words, now, with my office nearly empty, my work here coming to an end, I realized I'd created something Dad probably couldn't even fathom. Loyalty. It's earned through respect, not demanded by hierarchy. A team that trusted me because I always put their needs first. Professional relationships built on skill and mutual support, not favoritism and office politics. Lauren? She had the fancy title, the corner office she always wanted, Dad's unwavering backing. But what she never had was credibility with the people who actually did the work. By late afternoon, my office was completely barren. 6 years of my career, all fit into 4 cardboard boxes and a rolling cart. I thought I'd feel sad or furious, but instead, a strange, profound peace settled over me. When you've been undervalued your entire life, eventually you just stop trying to prove your worth to people who refuse to see it. I'd spent 28 years waiting for Dad to acknowledge my efforts, to admit I'd inherited his work ethic, his business smarts, maybe even to say he was proud of me. Clearly, that was never going to happen. I pulled out my laptop and started a new document. I'd been writing versions of my resignation letter in my head for months, but this time, it took me 20 minutes. Professional, brief. Thanked them for the opportunity. Gave 10 days notice, effective immediately. Done. But that wasn't all. I opened a new email and started adding recipients. Every board member, all department heads, and a hand-picked list of major clients. The subject line, Development Department Documentation and Project Status. See, I'm meticulous about paperwork. Every project had meticulous files, timelines, resource allocations, budgets, technical specs. Every meeting had notes. Every decision backed by clear documentation. And I had also meticulously documented every single time Lauren made a commitment without consulting my department. Every ridiculous timeline she demanded. Every frivolous expense she squandered, while expecting my team to do more with less. It wasn't personal, it was professional. Just facts, dates, email chains. It took me 2 hours to compile everything. Spreadsheets comparing developments, revenue to other departments. Project timelines contrasting my realistic estimates with Lauren's impossible promises. Budget analyses showing resource distribution. And, of course, the email chain from the incident that got me suspended. Plus 5 other similar situations from the past year, where Lauren had made commitments without consulting the teams who had to deliver. There was one particularly damning file, a project from 8 months ago. Lauren promised a client a deliverable in 6 weeks. My team predicted 16. Dad naturally sided with Lauren, insisted we make it happen. We delivered in 14 weeks, but only because my team worked 60-hour weeks, and I personally funded the overtime, taking a salary cut to make the numbers work. The client was happy. Lauren took all the credit, but no one except my staff knew the real cost. My finger hovered over the send button. I knew this would burn every single bridge, sever my connection with my father, obliterate any chance of reconciliation with Lauren. Everything I'd built here, reduced to a cautionary tale of family businesses and bad management. Click. I sent it. Next, I fired off an email to a recruitment agency. We'd talked 3 months ago when I first started thinking about quitting. They'd offered me a director role at a competitor, but I'd politely declined, citing family loyalty. Funny, isn't it? How quickly that loyalty disappears when it only flows one way. "Hello, Rachel," I wrote. "I'm ready to talk about the opportunity we discussed in August. If the position is still open, I can start immediately." The third email went to Paul, my lawyer. I'd consulted him last year about contract specifics. "Paul, I typed, "I need to go over the non-compete clause in my employment agreement. Can we meet tomorrow morning?" I knew that clause inside and out. I wrote it myself during a company restructuring 4 years prior. It barred me from working for direct competitors for 16 months, but the definition was narrow enough to leave me plenty of options. And I'd made sure my contract had benefits other employees didn't: full vesting of stock options regardless of tenure, and a severance payment that kicked in under specific conditions, like, say, being suspended without cause. By 6 p.m., my office was empty, my car full. I took one last look at the space that had been mine, then drove away without a single glance back. My house, which I'd bought 3 years ago, was in a quiet neighborhood. Not a mansion, but it was mine. Paid for with my money, not inherited. The mortgage was affordable, the garden peaceful, the neighbors friendly but not intrusive. I carried the boxes inside, poured a generous glass of wine, and settled on the couch with my laptop. The responses were already starting to trickle in. The first was from Michael Brooks, the company's lead attorney. "Call me immediately." Then board member Thomas Reed. "We need to discuss this information. Can you come in tomorrow?" 3 clients had copied my email to their account managers, asking pointed questions about project timelines. 2 of them specifically voiced concerns about Lauren's commitments. Daniel from development texted, "Holy expletive, is this real? Everyone's freaking out." I ignored them all. Instead, I uncorked a better bottle of wine, ordered Thai food, and felt lighter than I had in years. My phone rang 47 times that evening. 47. Dad called 12 times. Lauren 8. Michael Brooks, every 30 minutes like clockwork. I let every single one go to voicemail. The texts? They grew increasingly frantic. Dad's first voicemail was pure rage, demanding I call him back, accusing me of being unprofessional. His second was confusing. "What exactly do you think you're accomplishing?" By the third, he was almost pleading. "We need to discuss this sensibly." Lauren's messages were a torrent of threats. She accused me of trying to damage the company, of being jealous, of betraying the family. Her final voicemail was just sobs, claiming I was ruining everything Dad created. The irony nearly made me laugh. I'd spent 6 years actually helping Dad build something. Lauren? She'd spent those same 6 years coasting on his reputation, making mistakes for others to clean up. Michael Brooks' messages were more measured, but undeniably urgent. The legal repercussions of my documentation were clearly hitting home, and he wanted to talk about my objectives. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Truly, the next morning, for me, was utter silence. For everyone else, pure chaos. The calls had morphed into texts, emails, even a visit from Dad's secretary, begging me to contact the office. I sent one single group text to Dad, Lauren, and Michael. "I'll be in at 9 o'clock to collect my final belongings and submit formal paperwork. No discussion is required." Then my phone rang again. It was Rachel from the recruitment business at 7:30 a.m. "The position is still open," she chirped. "And after seeing your portfolio, they want to fast-track your interview. Can you meet with the CEO this afternoon?" "Absolutely," I said, a grin spreading across my face. Paul, my lawyer, was the second call. "Your non-compete is narrower than I remembered," he informed me. "You have options. Come by at 11 o'clock. We'll discuss strategy." No problem. I dressed carefully that morning. A navy suit, projecting confidence, not aggression. Professional, composed, ready to close this chapter cleanly. The parking lot was packed by 8:30. Word had clearly spread. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. I strode through the foyer, head held high, carrying my leather portfolio, with my resignation letter and a few other documents Paul had prepared after my late-night text. The executive floor, a madhouse, assistants huddled, murmuring. Department heads anxious, peering from doorways. You could feel the tension, everyone bracing for an explosion. My old office door was wide open, and there, sitting at my desk, sifting through my drawers that I'd already emptied, was Lauren. She looked up as I approached, her face twisted from frustration to pure rage. "You had no right to send that email!" she shrieked, jumping up so fast my old chair toppled over. "You've made me look incompetent in front of everyone." I stayed just outside the doorway, my voice calm. The documentation speaks for itself. I merely provided information on project schedules and resource allocation. If that makes you appear incompetent, maybe the problem isn't with my email. Her face flushed scarlet. "Dad's going to fire you for this. You've destroyed any chance of coming back." I held up my portfolio. "I'm not coming back. I'm here to make it official." Footsteps pounded down the hall. Dad appeared, Michael Brooks, right behind him. My father! He looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. His face drawn, his suit rumpled, a sight I'd never seen. "My office now," he barked. But Michael Brooks gently interjected. "Actually, the conference room would be more appropriate. This has moved beyond family matters." That identical conference room, the one where I'd been suspended just yesterday. It felt completely different now. The board wasn't there, but Michael had brought a paralegal who set up a laptop to record everything. "Before we begin," Michael stated, his voice cautious, "I need to clarify that this meeting is being documented for company policy regarding employment matters." Dad looked like he wanted to fight, but Michael's gaze stopped him. "My father might run the company," I said, my voice steady as I slid my resignation letter across the table. But smart executives listen to their lawyers during potential legal situations. I looked Dad straight in the eye. "I'm resigning, effective immediately. Per Section 7 of my employment contract, suspension without documented cause triggers the severance provision. I'm also exercising my stock options per Section 12, allowing immediate vesting upon voluntary departure following disciplinary action deemed inappropriate by outside counsel." He'd clearly seen my contract, knew exactly which sections I was referencing. "You wrote those provisions yourself," Dad said slowly, a dawning horror on his face. "During the restructuring." "I did," I confirmed. "At the time, you called me paranoid for including them. Turns out I was just prepared." Lauren, who had followed us, was now fuming in the doorway. "This is blackmail. You're trying to extort the company." Michael turned to her, his tone gently cutting. "Exercising contractual rights is extortion? These are provisions she negotiated in good faith 4 years ago. The company agreed to them." "How much?" Dad's voice had gone flat. That cold, detached tone he used when calculating losses. "The severance package is 5 months' salary," I stated, keeping my voice level and professional. "The stock options are currently valued at approximately $400,000, based on yesterday's evaluation. I'll also need my complete personnel file, documentation of all projects I led, and references from the 3 board members who served on the development oversight committee." Lauren's fists were clenched. "And if we refuse?" "Then," I said, "I refer you to Section 19. It outlines the dispute resolution process. Arbitration. Expensive, time-consuming, and public." I met Dad's gaze. "I'd prefer to handle this cleanly. I've already secured another position. I'm not interested in dragging this out or causing additional damage to the company." "Additional damage?" Dad's voice rose. "You sent confidential information to clients and board members. You've undermined your sister's credibility. You violated a dozen policies regarding information disclosure." "Actually," Michael interjected, sharp and abrupt, "the information she shared was internal project communications. Nothing confidential, nothing proprietary, nothing that violates her contract or company policy. I've reviewed everything she sent. It's all factual reporting of project statuses and business decisions." The paralegal, silent until now, just kept typing, recording every single word. Why? Dad finally asked, and for the first time, his tone wasn't furious. It was just exhausted. Why would you blow up everything like this? My voice stayed calm. I refused to let emotion crack it. You suspended me for doing my job. You sided with Lauren when she made promises she couldn't keep. And you blamed me for being honest about realistic timelines. Yesterday wasn't the first time, Dad. It was just the final time. Lauren scoffed. So, you sabotaged the company. I documented reality, I replied. If reality is damaging, maybe the problem isn't with my documentation. Lauren, disgusted, chimed in. You're just mad because Dad gave me a leadership position. You've always been jealous that I'm older, that I got to work with him first, that he trusts me more. I couldn't help it. I actually laughed. Trust? He trusts you to make promises you can't keep. He trusts you to take credit for other people's work. He trusts you to prioritize your ego over the company's success. That's enough. Dad roared, slamming his hand on the table. You're right, I said, standing up, gathering my portfolio. It's enough. Michael, I'll expect the paperwork for the severance and stock options by the end of business today. You have my lawyer's contact information. Wait. Dad's hand shot up. That gesture, the one that always meant stop. Listen. Obey. We can work this out. Take a few weeks to cool down, and we'll discuss how to move forward. There is no moving forward, I told him. Not here. I walked to the door, paused. You built something incredible, Dad. Sterling Tech was everything you dreamed it could be. You should probably figure out how to keep it that way, instead of letting it crumble because you can't admit your favorite child isn't qualified for the role you gave her. Lauren's face turned white. How dare you? The Hamilton project launches in 5 weeks, I stated, turning back. It's the biggest contract the company has ever landed. Development has been working on it for 8 months. Daniel Kim is leading the team. He's brilliant. But he needs support from management that understands technical realities. I looked straight at my father. Lauren told the client they could have additional features beyond the initial scope. Those enhancements. Another 5 months of development, double the budget. The client thinks they'll get them in 6 weeks because that's what she told them. Michael Brooks' face was even paler than Lauren's. The data is all on the shared drive, I continued, my voice sharp. Hamilton project scope specifications, timeline analyses, resource requirements, and an email exchange where Lauren made promises without consulting development. I adjusted my portfolio. You can fire Daniel for telling you the same truth I did. Or you can fix the situation before it turns into a lawsuit. It's your choice. I walked out, left them there, still processing, still reeling. The elevator ride down felt strange, eerie. 6 years in that building. Hundreds of times I'd walked those halls, built relationships, launched projects, carved out a career I was incredibly proud of. And it all ended because I told the truth, because I refused to apologize for it. My desk was already cleared, but I stopped by the development area on my way out. My team was all gathered around Daniel's office, clearly having pieced together the drama. You're really leaving? Emily, one of my senior developers, looked stunned. I am, I said, but you're in very good hands. I caught Daniel's eye. Trust yourself. You know what you're doing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. He nodded and started. The Hamilton project is thoroughly documented, I finished for him. Stand firm on the timeline. Don't let them push you into promises you can't keep. I looked at the entire crew. You're the best developers I've ever worked with. You built something incredible here. Don't let anyone diminish your efforts or take credit for your work. There were tears, hugs, promises to stay in touch. I meant everyone, but deep down I knew walking out that door meant most of these ties would fray. People would be forced to choose between loyalty to me and loyalty to the paycheck. Most would choose the company. The lobby itself felt like a gauntlet. Employees I'd known for years watched me go, some with sorrow, some with blatant curiosity, a few with barely concealed pleasure at the executive drama. I made it to my car. That's when the shaking started. The adrenaline had carried me through the confrontation. Now the reality of what I'd just done hit me. I'd resigned, severed ties with my family, ruined my relationship with my father, and promised myself I'd never speak to my sister again. My phone chimed. A text from Rachel, the recruiter. CEO wants to meet at 2. Send your portfolio. I sent her the same documentation file I'd supplied yesterday. Internal email chains, project summaries, development achievements, revenue growth, team leadership examples. My entire career boiled down to a PDF for strangers to judge. Paul, my lawyer, called as I was driving out of the parking lot. Michael Brooks just contacted me. They want to negotiate. Nothing to negotiate, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. The contract is clear. They're worried about the Hamilton project, Paul continued. Apparently, your assessment about the scope creep was accurate, and they're facing a potential lawsuit if they can't deliver what was promised. Not my problem anymore. They want you to consult through the project completion. Premium rate, flexible schedule, no direct reporting to family members. I almost giggled. So, they want me to fix Lauren's mess while she takes credit for it. They want you to prevent a 7-figure lawsuit, Paul said, deadpan. The offer is compelling. The answer is no. Paul was silent for a moment. You're sure? This could be a bridge back if you ever change your mind. I don't want a bridge back, Paul, I said, driving out onto the open road. I want out. Then I'll handle the severance negotiation, Paul assured me. They'll probably try to lowball the stock options, but we have the documentation to prove their true value. The rest of that day flew by. A meeting with Rachel and the new company, discussing the role, negotiating a salary and benefits package that honestly dwarfed what I'd been making at Sterling Tech. A tour of their facilities, introductions to the brilliant team I'd be leading, conversations about vision and growth strategy. By 5 p.m., I had an official offer letter with a 2-week start date. The severance paperwork had arrived at Paul's office. By 6 p.m., Michael Brooks had tried to sneak in a confidentiality agreement that would gag me from ever mentioning why I left. Paul shot back a revised version that prevented Sterling Tech from badmouthing me to future employers or clients. They settled by 8 p.m. The stock options transferred before the end of the next business day. $400,000, just like that, landed in my account. 6 years of accumulated equity liquidated. With the severance, I had a financial cushion big enough to adjust to my new role without a shred of stress. Dad called once more that week. I let it go to voicemail. His message was brief. I don't understand why you're throwing everything away. Call me when you're ready to be reasonable. I deleted it without replying. The Hamilton project, just as I'd predicted, imploded. 3 weeks after I left, the client discovered Lauren's promises were completely unattainable. They threatened legal action. Sterling Tech had to negotiate a humiliating settlement, a partial refund, and a 6-month extension of the deadline. Daniel called me amidst the chaos, asking for advice. I talked him through technical solutions, helped him prepare a presentation for the client, guided him through those awful management meetings. He handled it beautifully. But the damage to Sterling Tech's reputation? It was done. 2 board members resigned. 3 major clients jumped ship to competitors. The company's valuation plummeted by 18%. Lauren, relegated from customer relations to special projects, a meaningless title that kept her on payroll but stripped her of any decision-making power. Dad brought in an outside consultant to revamp the management team. The consultant's report, I heard through my professional network, was a brutal indictment of nepotistic hiring and a complete lack of accountability. I knew all this from former colleagues, reaching out despite the obvious awkwardness. You'd think hearing all that would feel incredibly satisfying, right? But honestly, I just felt sad. Sterling Tech had been something truly exceptional. Seeing it falter felt like losing a love that should have succeeded, but never did. My new position, though, it exceeded every expectation. The team was brilliant. The leadership actually listened to technical assessments. And nobody expected me to clean up messes left by incompetent family members. 6 months in, we'd launched 2 key products, signed contracts with 4 Fortune 500 companies. I bought a bigger home, adopted a rescue dog named Cooper, and even started dating. Someone completely outside tech, with no ties to family drama. Life finally felt healthy and sustainable. Then, a year after I left Sterling Tech, Dad showed up at my house. Unexpectedly, he looked older, smaller, defeated in a way that had nothing to do with physical size. "Can I come in?" he asked. I almost said no, but curiosity won. "Sure." We sat in my living room, that awkward silence thick between us. "Cooper, my rescue mutt," eyed Dad suspiciously before settling at my feet. "The company's struggling." Dad finally broke the silence. "We lost 2 more major clients last month. Revenue is down 30% from when you left." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "Are you?" He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in forever. "You destroyed everything I built." "No, Dad," I replied, my voice firm. "I documented what was already happening. You destroyed it by refusing to see reality. Lauren made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. She made mistakes repeatedly," I pressed on, "and you enabled her every single time. You chose protecting her ego over protecting your company." He was silent for a long, heavy moment. "She's my daughter." "So am I." The words hung in the air, carrying a weight neither of us had acknowledged before. "I know." His voice cracked just a little. "Your mother used to tell me I was too hard on you, too easy on Lauren. I thought she was imagining things, seeing favoritism that wasn't there. It was there. I know that now." He wiped his face tiredly. The consultant's report was illuminating. Apparently, I've been displaying systematic bias, favoring the elder daughter while holding the younger to unrealistic standards. Her exact words. He looked up, a glimmer of something I hadn't seen in years. "I came here to ask if you'd consider coming back, not to your old position, as COO, full authority over operations, a seat on the board, an equity stake that would make you a major shareholder." The offer dangled between us. It was intriguing, in a way I hadn't anticipated. His company, his legacy, the chance to right the wrongs. "No," I said, just like that. Dad's face fell. "You won't even consider it?" "I don't need to consider it. I have a position I love. Working with people who respect my expertise, building something new. Why would I go back to constantly proving my worth to people who've already decided I don't have any?" "Because it's family," he pleaded. "Family should be the place where you don't have to prove anything, Dad. Family should be the people who see your value even when you mess up. You gave that unconditional acceptance to Lauren, but you never gave it to me." He looked down at his hands, quiet. "I failed you." "Yes, you did. Is there any way to fix that?" I thought about it, really tried to find an answer. "I don't know. Maybe eventually. But not by offering me a job to save your company. If you want a relationship with me, it can't be transactional." "What would it look like if it wasn't transactional?" "It would look like you acknowledging what happened, without trying to justify it. It would look like you respecting my decisions, even when they disappoint you. It would look like building something new, instead of trying to resurrect something that's already dead." Dad nodded slowly. "That sounds hard." "Most worthwhile things are." He stood to leave, pausing at the door. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of what you've accomplished in your new position. I've heard good things about the work you're doing." Thank you, I said. The words felt insufficient yet real. Can I call you sometime? Not about business. Just to talk. Maybe, I replied. We'll see. He walked away. I closed the door, leaning against it, Cooper nudging my knees for silent comfort. The conversation should have been an ending, but it felt more like a beginning. Not necessarily reconciliation, but the prospect of something new, based on honesty, not obligation. Lauren? She never reached out. I heard through the grapevine that she eventually left Sterling Tech and moved to California. Apparently, she went into real estate where her talent for optimistic promises might actually be useful. Sterling Tech continued to struggle for a while, but eventually stabilized. It became a smaller, more focused corporation. Dad hired actual expert management and finally, truly delegated daily operations. The company would never again reach the heights it once did, but it survived. My own career? It exploded in ways I never thought possible. 3 years after leaving Sterling Tech, I was overseeing innovation strategy for a major global tech company. 5 years later, I started my own consulting firm, ironically specializing in helping family businesses navigate succession planning and management changes. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. Dad and I painstakingly rebuilt something resembling a connection. We had dinner every few months. Our conversations were safe, focused on books, current events, his reluctant attempts at retirement hobbies. He never gave me a verbal apology, not in so many words, but his actions spoke volumes. He walked me down the aisle at my wedding, 3 years after our living room talk, and gave a toast that subtly acknowledged his mistakes as a father without making the day about him. He sent birthday cards with handwritten notes, not just generic signatures. He asked about my life with genuine curiosity, not looking for opportunities to give advice. It wasn't the relationship I'd yearned for as a child, but it was real, based on acceptance, not expectations. Looking back now, that suspension, it was the best damn thing that ever happened to me. It forced the confrontation I'd been dreading for years. It shoved me out of a situation where I was constantly devalued and propelled me toward incredible growth. The cost was huge, absolutely. Family relationships shattered. A job I'd poured my heart into, abandoned. It was a terrifying leap. But on the other side of that upheaval was independence, achievement, and the profound satisfaction that comes from not having to apologize for taking up space. Sometimes the most spectacular retaliation isn't a dramatic showdown. It's simply refusing to play the game anymore. Walking away isn't giving up. It's acknowledging that your role in someone else's story isn't necessary for you to have your own, captivating one. My father wanted me to apologize, to maintain peace and appearances. Instead, I chose honesty and accountability, even if it meant losing everything I'd achieved with his company. That vacant desk, that resignation letter, they symbolized more than just quitting a job. They symbolized choosing myself, respecting my own expertise, demanding respect instead of begging for scraps of praise. The lawyer's pale expression, my dad's defeated silence, they weren't about company drama. They were about people finally seeing reality after years of denying it. I didn't ruin Sterling Tech. I just stopped shielding it from the consequences of its own dysfunction. The company's struggles after I left? Not my problem to avert. Not my failure to accept. They were the natural result of bad management, cronyism, and a refusal to prioritize expertise over comfort. My sister smirked that morning because she thought she'd won. She'd gotten me suspended, shown her power over Dad, put me in my place despite years of competence she couldn't match. But victory isn't about who gets suspended or who's favored. It's about who lives a life they're proud of, who surrounds themselves with people who see their worth, who achieve success without tearing others down. And I got that. A career I love. Relationships built on mutual respect. A life where my accomplishments speak for themselves, not constantly compared to someone else's comfort. That's the real ending to this story. Not the dramatic exit. Not the company's troubles. Not even the shaky reconciliation with my father. The ending is me, 5 years later, sitting in my own office with my own team, building something significant without constantly looking over my shoulder for approval that would never come. Sometimes you don't get the apologies you deserve. People who should appreciate your worth may never do so. Sometimes family can be a source of sorrow, not support. But you always get to decide what happens next. You can keep fighting for recognition from people who refuse to give it to you. Or you can channel that energy into creating something new, with people who already see your potential. I chose the latter, and I've never, ever regretted it. Have you ever had to choose between family and your own worth? I want to hear about it. Tell me in the comments below, what would you have done?